a warm welcome to everyone who joined this webinar on DevOps and how you can unleash the potential of DevOps, especially in Salesforce platform and this ecosystem. I am Balesh Lakshminarayanan. I am the CEO and co-founder of ABSYZ. ABSYZ is a niche Salesforce platinum partner. We have been in this ecosystem for close to about 10, 12 years now. And we are a 400 plus consultant team. Today, specifically, we will be talking about how DevOps is affecting this ecosystem. And we have some very good veterans of Salesforce who will be taking you through this session. I have with me my colleague Prasenjeet and Ratnambabu Neelam. Both of them have like close to a decade of experience in Salesforce, multiple architect certifications. You cannot have a better team talking about these concepts, whether you are a fresher who is just getting into the Salesforce area and trying to learn DevOps, or whether you are a seasoned professional who just wants to brush up or understand more about how this is helping, or even if you are a senior manager or a CIO who wants to understand how DevOps can help your specific ecosystem or your specific org and instance and why it is so important. We'll be talking about all this. And just maybe Prasenjeet, Ratna, if you can move to the next slide. So today we'll be talking about what is DevOps, a quick introduction. I'll not go into the details of DevOps. The reason is enough and more has been already spoken about what is DevOps. The core focus is why DevOps is so important, especially in Salesforce ecosystem, especially large enterprise enterprise companies which use multiple orgs of Salesforce with multiple dev teams. For them, it is so critical and important, and the kind of cost benefit as well as the efficiencies which it can bring, especially at the DevOps team, it's phenomenal. And we'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about certain tools. We'll be talking about App Exchange tools as well as non-App Exchange tools. So that's where this automation using Bitbucket comes, which is again like a core focus area in this particular webinar. But again, feel free to have questions because Prasenjeet and Ratnambabu have worked extensively on multiple tools. And towards the end of the session, we will have this Q&A where we can talk about or answer all these questions. Even if your question is a little bit outside the presentation, maybe on some specific tools, we can still take it up depending on how relevant it is. And I can more or less say like 99%. Most of us have worked on most of those tools, and we should be able to answer. So with that, let me give the presentation to Prasenjeet and Ratna. You can take it over from here. Once again, thank you to everyone, and let's get this started. There you go. Yeah.
Thank you, Balesh, for the quick introduction. As you have already introduced us, and then we already spoke about the agenda of this meeting, I'll take it forward. First of all, thanks everyone for joining today's session. So we are here to discuss a little more about what we can do in terms of the development and deployment lifecycle when we are on Salesforce platform, correct? So let's get started. Again, good morning and good evening, people who are joining us outside the IST time zone. So let's discuss about DevOps. So what DevOps actually is. So as the name already suggests, DevOps are actually two different terminology that has been brought together, and it has been coined as DevOps. It means we are actually trying to bridge the gap between development and operations team, right? So often it happens that we indulge in the development and deployment activity, and the operations teams they're not much aware of what are the things or the intricacies going on behind the scenes when it comes to the client deliverables, right? So that is where the DevOps comes into picture. And we are here to show you the automation processes, the usage of Bitbucket as a tool, as a version control system, how we can leverage that in order to create a CI/CD pipeline, do all kinds of automations, tests, code reviews, and also we'll talk about what benefit are we going to achieve if we are using the DevOps as a tool as compared to the traditional way of using chain sets for the deployments, correct? So here are few misconceptions, like people usually think DevOps is all about automation. To some extent, it is true, but it is more about the cultural shift that we want to bring within our team members to emphasize the collaboration among team members. We can integrate different automation tools, and there will be uh, a bridging of the gap between communication that we often observe when people start working in silos, right? The other point is DevOps is not just a job title or a specific team. We often have observed that there will be a separate release management team, right, where people will be indulging into activities related to deployment of your metadata into different Salesforce orgs, right? But it is not just a job title. Any developer can also deal with the DevOps related activities. So if you are a Salesforce developer, so it is a kind of philosophy or an approach that you have to inculcate in your mind over the period of time. And you should guide your own team members. You should monitor different set of activities that happens since the beginning of the requirement gathering phase, logging Jira tickets that you all might be aware of, and then the last point where we get our metadata deployed into the targeted org, be it production, be it your sandboxes, whatever it is. Now, DevOps is not just for large organizations. Even the boutique companies, even the startups, they actively follow the DevOps principles so that they can streamline their deployment processes, and they can also fasten their delivery of the software products that they are trying to implement. It is always not about the speed and sacrificing quality. DevOps obviously is about speed and delivering the metadata on time, but it also has different tools inbuilt. You can always integrate third-party tools in order to ensure that whenever you are delivering the content or your software solution to the client, the quality is always consistent and it is always being monitored by different set of individuals. We'll talk more about it. And obviously, DevOps is something, as we are talking about a philosophy change, a cultural shift, right? It cannot be implemented overnight. So it has to be a gradual shift. We have to start looking at educating people in order to understand this DevOps. And we have to continuously focus on improving our DevOps solution as well. So here we will talk about the three key principles of DevOps. Okay, so if you see in the very first slide, in the agenda of our meeting, collaboration and communication, automation, and continuous improvement. So these are the three key principles of DevOps. So whenever we deal with any DevOps tools, we have to always keep these things in mind. Now, what happens in the phase of collaboration and communication? So any software development starts with proper communication. We start creating a Teams channel or maybe some channel on Slack, and we start communicating among team members, right? We talk to our team leads, we talk to our project managers, maybe even the client, and we get the requirements. And then we track those requirements. We create user stories on Jira. We have other tools called Trello, right, in order to track the issues or the requirements which are going to come on an ongoing basis as long as our project is running, right? There are tools for version control system like Git and GitLab. There are tools for code review like SonarQube and PMD, right? So all these tools brought together, when it is integrated, it gives us a platform when we are going to collaborate among team members and effectively communicate within ourselves, so that at any point in time, we are assured that if something is going wrong, we have the tracking mechanism, we can get to the root cause analysis of it, and we can deliver a solution out of it, right? The next thing comes the key principle of DevOps is automating different aspects of it until the metadata moves into the targeted org, like I mentioned. So it streamlines work. There are less room for mistakes. Why? Because we are depending on the automation tools and less manual intervention is involved. The speed of delivery will also be consistent, and there will be better team collaboration, and we are also going to reduce the time and efforts, which is again going to come into picture when you are using traditional tools like chain sets on top of Salesforce platform, correct? So on the right side, if you see, there is a diagram which shows you a kind of infinite loop, right? So in this loop, if you see, it starts with the planning phase, right? Then it goes to the coding phase, then it goes to the build phase. So take this as your entire software deployment lifecycle, development lifecycle. Okay. So it starts with requirement gathering, we plan everything, we do the effort estimates, then we indulge in the coding activities, right? We start coding. Then the next phase is about building phase. We build the code and we try to test it. We run unit tests on our code, and then we move forward with the release. So release is nothing but we are trying to deploy our code from, let's say, one sandbox to another sandbox in Salesforce terminology. Then we deploy it. We operate some mechanisms on our deployed code. Probably you can think of indulging in code review activities, right? We need to analyze the code, whether it has been fulfilling the basic criteria of the business requirement or not. Then we continuously monitor, and this phase goes on, and it represents a infinite loop, that that will only end when the software development lifecycle has come to an end and you have delivered this software application successfully. So the next principle I would say is continuous improvement. So just implementing DevOps is not going to make your life easier or solve any problem. We also have to indulge into code reviews. We have to see where are the problems occurring within the team members, and then we have to streamline the processes by implementing certain other automation tools, as we discussed in the earlier slide, right? And once all of these processes are done, then we are going to also use different infrastructure related tools like Prometheus and Grafana to monitor how our deployment lifecycle is performing, what kind of resources in terms of operating system are we consuming, how much of build time are we expecting on a regular basis. For a month, if you're consuming, let's say, 1,000 minutes of build time, in case your delivery or your deployment cycle is maybe on a daily basis, right? So these are the aspects that we have to continuously monitor, and none of this is possible when we talk about Bitbucket versus the chain set approach. Now, what I would like to bring to this table, the cons of using chain set. As long as you are using chain set, right, there is no historical tracking of the code that you are trying to develop. Okay. Let me bring an example for you. So consider that we have got a set of requirement from the client, and there are two developers working on the similar set of requirements, right? Consider we are developing one Apex class that needs to have two different methods solving two different business requirements, correct? Now, what these two developers will do is they start creating their own methods without knowing whose method is going to be deployed first, correct? Now, at any point in time, it may so happen that the developer 2 is trying to modify some code that was initially written by developer 1 within the same Apex class. Now, if this change is made on the Apex class level, we can only identify the last modified date and who modified that particular Apex class. But we do not know that which particular block of lines of code was written by developer 1 and which block of code was written by developer 2. Who is the sole owner of it, right? In order to identify such kind of historical tracking, we would need some tool that helps us control all the versions that are being maintained within that same Apex class. That is when the version control system comes into picture. So version control system will help you identify who is making what changes at what point in time as part of which business requirement. And this is not something that will be achievable in change set. Let's consider another scenario. So developer one has pushed some changes, let's say from your dev sandbox to QA sandbox, correct? Now assume that something went wrong when the QA team was testing out that particular piece of functionality in the QA org, correct? Now, at any point in time, the client may come up to us and say that this code is having some bug. The QA has identified the issues. Let's roll it back. Okay. Now, when the client asks you to roll the requirement back, if the traditional mode of deployment has been followed using change set, there is no way that you can think of that you can just on a single click of a button, you can roll out or roll back your changes, right? But this is something which is possible if you are using Bitbucket as a tool, right? In Bitbucket, we have a concept called committing and pushing your changes to the branches, right? Now assume that, okay, so we will be talking more in terms of demo when we are going ahead with this Bitbucket related automation. But let me set a quick context what will happen in this scenario. I have pushed my changes to the branch. This branch has been connected to my targeted Salesforce org, which is the QA org. The deployment has been done. When the client asks me to roll back the changes, all I need to do is just get the commit ID, perform some Git related commands. It will execute the commit ID and it will just bring back all the changes and it will back deploy the last successful deployment. What that means is any changes that went with code errors or issues that will be rolled back. And now your QA can continue with further testing, regression testing, or whatever kind of testing they're trying to do. So that's also a purpose. Now, identify that when you're pushing your change via change set, something went wrong and the test class failed. So there has to be one person who is continuously monitoring and probably communicating with the development team, saying that these are the test class failures or these are the kind of metadata dependencies that you have in code, and this is causing deployment failure. So there is a manual intervention here where some person has to be designated to report back the errors to the development team, right? But with Bitbucket automation, we can automate such kind of reporting mechanisms wherein whenever there is any deployment or validation occurring against your code base, the errors will be reported back to the concerned developer who has pushed that change, and the developer can take the ownership and right away start working on it. So there is no manual intervention involved over here. So these are the key benefits, and there are lots more to it. So what I'll show you over here is this is a kind of monitoring tool that we were talking about in the previous slide. So imagine that you have set up all your automation and all your tools on a particular infrastructure. Let's assume that that is not on a cloud, but it is running on some kind of server that you're maintaining. Could be on-premises server as well, right? Now, in order to identify how many build minutes you are consuming, what is the disk space that you are maintaining in order to you're consuming in order to push your changes. For example, a big project and it has a code base of, let's say, 1 GB for an example, right? And now these are the kind of reporting things that you can expect by using these tools like Prometheus and Grafana, which is out in the market, correct? So here, this is a quick overview of what all things we can do in terms of DevOps capabilities, and in specific to Bitbucket, we will quickly show you a demo how we can integrate Bitbucket with Salesforce, how we can maintain different version control systems, how we can maintain different repositories, how the automation of pipelines can happen where automated validations, automated code review, automated deployments can be triggered, correct? So I will quickly request Ratna, please go ahead and you can bring up the Bitbucket related automation that we have as part of our demo. And yeah, I'll switch it over. Thank you.
Thanks, Prasenjeet. Thanks, Balesh. Yeah, so all this time we did a lot of talking about Bitbucket and how we use it, what are its benefits over the chain sets. So quickly, without wasting any time, taking the screen over and jump onto the solution that we built on Bitbucket. So that has pipelines and how we can develop our code in VS Code and test and then commit the code to Bitbucket, and then how our Bitbucket pipelines will make the deployment automatically to our target orgs is what I'm going to show you now. So let me take this screen. Yeah. So yeah, this is my VS Code. If you can see, so this is where I usually develop, enhance my code based on the user stories that I'll be getting from my each sprint. So let's assume that I'm working on this Jira ticket, or for that matter any ticket called SF1001. I'll be creating a feature branch in my Bitbucket. So this is where you can see this. So this is my Bitbucket repository. Here, if you can go. So here we have all these branches. One is our master branch. So you can think of this master branch as our Salesforce production org, and out of which I clone this current sprint branch. So this is where we expect all of our developers to work on and commit their code to. And this feature SF1001, so this is my branch where I'm also working as a developer, and this story is assigned to me. So for that, I created this branch out of this current sprint branch. So the same branch is what I pulled into my VS Code. And here you can see we have these classes, LWCs, and all over here. So now what I'm going to do is I'll quickly create an Apex class here. So I'm naming this as account helper. So let's assume that I got this requirement to create this account helper for my account trigger. So I'm not going to write that entire code here, but I can just put a comment. This is first line of my code. Okay, so the moment I save this Apex class here, so this is a brand new class that I want to push into my org as well. So I'll use this command. We are all pretty much new about this. So this is run based on our Salesforce CLI. So the moment I deploy something, so it will be deployed into my source org. So that is something you can see it here. Right. So this is my class. So I developed this functionality. Let's assume that this is not a functionality, but once I'm completed, I have completed my code as well as the test class. I'm not writing the test class as part of this demo. But so once we are done with that, now what we should do is in the chain set world, we'll just create a chain set from my source org from here. And then we will accept that chain set from the target org. But whereas when we use the version control system, so here what I can do is I can see in the changes, I can see both my Apex class as well as the metadata file of it. So I can stage both of these. So when you say stage, so that means these two classes are ready to be pushed, committed into your Bitbucket, or for that matter, any other version controlling system. So you have to stage. Let's assume that if there are multiple classes here, but you only want to deploy account helper only, then you'll just deploy, stage that account helper only. So once the staging is done, then we are ready to commit it. For commit, you can give a commit message as well. It's nothing but a small description. Account helper class is created. So this is my commit message and I'm committing it. So the moment I commit it, what happens is this, there are two things actually. So whatever you're seeing here, this is my local machine. So there is a Git repository that will be initiated in my local machine, as well as, so there is a remote repository, which is nothing but my Bitbucket repository. Here, if you can see, this is my feature branch, right? So let me go to the source and I'll open my Apex classes here. So as of now, there is just only one Apex class. Here I can see. So now I committed it. It will be just committed into my local machine. So I need to sync this so that these changes will go to my remote repository. That is nothing but my Bitbucket repository here. So I'm just waiting for this commit to be done. So it will take few minutes, few seconds to few minutes, depending on the number of components that are included in your commit. So that commit is done. So if I go here and refresh, yeah, here we can see this account helper, which is I just got created in my local machine, and I was able to upload it into my remote branch. So now this is just one branch that I worked on, and I created as as I am one of the developers. So if multiple developers are working in the same team, so then they all can create the similar branches. So now all of our next target branch would be this current sprint branch. Once we are done with our changes in the current sprint, then we should be committing all of our changes from our local branches to the current sprint branch. So for that, we need to create a pull request. Yeah. So before I'm doing that, I would like to show you something which is Bitbucket pipelines. So here, if you can see in my code, I can show you that we have a Bitbucket pipeline, which is nothing but a YAML file. So I will explain you guys this later, but what it can do is it will help us do our deployments automatically. So the moment, now what happens is, once I create the pull request and commit my changes from my local branch to the next branch, so it will automatically run a pipeline that will validate these changes against the target arc. So which I'm going to do now. Here I will create a pull request. Yeah, so the moment I'm creating this pull request, here you can see that this pipeline is currently running. So which will do the validation against this arc. Here, this is my target arc. Let me quickly refresh here. Yeah, here if you can see, the validation is in progress. So yeah, it is, looks like it is successfully validated. So the same thing you can see here as well, right? So let me go back to my pull request, which I just created. So once I create the pull request, I can see that pull request created in the pull request page of Bitbucket. Over here, we can see the success or failure status of that build also, which is nothing but our Bitbucket pipeline, which I just did. So if you see a success message over here, that means, okay, it is successfully validated against the target arc. So that means, it is a clear indication to the reviewer who is going to review next. So that, whatever changes that this developer is requesting, so those will not fail in the target arc from the deployment standpoint. right? So that the reviewer can just, focus on the code quality as well as, the best practices, whether this developer is following or not, or, all these issues he can focus on. So here, this is the page where we can see the pull request. I'm no more, acting as a developer now. So here I will act as the code reviewer, where I can get the, I can see there are one Apex class actually this pull request is trying to commit, which is account helper. So once I'm reviewing the changes and I'm good with this, then I can approve and I can merge it. So once I merge it, then the change from the feature branch SF1001 can be committed into the current sprint branch. Yeah. So now the merge request is in process. So if this is done, then we can see the code in the release branch. Let me quickly go and see. Yeah, here it is created. So the account helper. So now what I'm going to do is I'll go and create a pull request from this branch, from the current sprint branch to the master branch now. So let's assume that now we are done with our sprint or iteration. So we are now approaching the release to the or production or UAT, right? So here now what we'll do is once we close our sprint, our release manager will deploy all of his changes from the sprint branch to the master branch. So this is again, we need to create a pull request for this. So here also, it will give an opportunity for reviewers to see if there is, any merge conflicts are there, or maybe, if the code quality in terms of, best practices and all, the developers are following or not. Here, this is a place the reviewers can, take a decision whether they can approve or, reject also. There is this decline button. When you click on it, it won't be merged into the master branch. But if you're all good, you can approve it as well as you can merge it. So the moment you merge it, these changes, whatever we just pushed, that is nothing but an Apex class, will be getting into the master branch now. So now, since we are in the master branch, what I'm going to do is I also set up one more Bitbucket pipeline along with this automated one, which is a custom pipeline here, if you can see. So this is the deployment to prod, which is a custom name. You can give whatever name you want. So the previous one, which only did the validation, but this one, I asked this step to deploy the changes into this without, because already the validation is done in the previous step, right? So this is, I did not automate it, but I gave my release manager to manually do the deployment. So this is where he can do that. There is a button on the pipeline space called run pipeline. So when you click on it, you can select the available branches. Master is the branch that I'm going to select. And from the pipelines, you can see two pipelines. One is custom and the other one is pull request feature, which is the automated one that we saw earlier. So now I'm going to select the custom deployment to prod pipeline here. So the moment I, run this, it will run here, as well as we can see that deployment here. So usually it will take some time in Salesforce. Yeah, here if you see the pipeline, which is already, pipeline is nothing but some set of rules that we ask this Bitbucket pipelines to run for us. So what we did is we have this SFDX CLI commands that we put those commands in order in a sequence that will make this deployment happen. So yeah, let me go back. Yeah, this is where we can, yeah, 838 So this deployment is done here so that you can see the Apex class which we just created on the other org here. Yeah. Here, this is the Apex class that we just created in the source org. This was deployed into this target. So, yeah. So this is how we can do the deployments. So what I'm going to do is now I'll quickly, show you that few steps how I set up this entire thing. Yeah. So first of all, we needed a connected app in the target org. This is my connected app. So this connected app we need to set up, which is based on the JWT. So for that, you need a digital certificate. So you can create a digital certificate by following the commands here. So there are certain, OpenSSL commands that you need to run. So this will generate a server.key and server.password. And this command will generate a server.csr. And finally, that certificate, that CSR will be used to generate a digital certificate. So here I can show you here. So these are all the different files. This digital certificate is what we use to create this connected app. Right. So once we are done with the connected app, then what we'll do is we need, few things in Bitbucket as well. So we need the consumer key of that connected app, and we need that, username of the target org, as well as decryption ID and decryption key of the, digital certificate that we, server.key that we have. So that will generate the encrypted version of the server.key. So this is all, I'm going a bit technical here, but this is what we all needed to, make this setup. Right. So once we are done with this setup, then all we need is these pipelines. So as I said, pipelines are nothing but set of instructions. So this is one, OpenSSL, command that will decrypt your server key, which you already uploaded into your Bitbucket. And then this command will help you. This is a new SF commands to log into the target org. So this command will help you establish a connection between your Bitbucket and Salesforce. And this command will convert all your source format code into metadata API format. And finally, this command will help you deploy your code. If you see here, I put this dry run, which is nothing but a validation. But whereas on the other pipeline step, so I wrote this, so which will do the deployment. So yeah, this is all about it. So can I expect any questions?
Yeah. Thank you, Ratna. You have compressed almost like an entire day's 8 hours training into 20 minutes. So we have to probably give some time for everyone to digest what they just saw or heard. But on a very high level, the idea is, when we see DevOps, we see those infinity loop cycling tracks, right? And the whole point is, it's exactly what it is. Like, it's an infinite loop. We have to understand that this is a continuous process, and it's not something where, like, one fine day you will start DevOps and by evening you will be done with DevOps. That's not how it is. It's a continuous loop. And that's why the logo itself is like that infinity loop. So we have just touched like on a very high level of what is possible, and that too using only one single tool, Bitbucket. The same can be possible with Copado or Flossom or Jitrip. There are just too many tools, and each has its own advantage, disadvantage. But the whole point is, DevOps, the importance of DevOps. So when multiple developers are working on a large instance, large projects, especially multiple sprints, without having a clear CI/CD process, it's just not possible to have proper deployments, and that's where these processes become very important. So with that, I'll leave the forum open for questions, and Ratna and Prasenjeet are here for answering your queries. You can maybe type your questions on the chat box, or you can also come online and then directly ask if you have any questions. And I hope this session was very helpful, especially for new developers who are entering the Salesforce ecosystem and just getting a hang of the entire deployment and working on large teams.
I would like to highlight a few things over here. Like we have all those audiences. To all of you, it might, if you are new to this DevOps ecosystem, it might seem a little overwhelming to you. There are a lot of intricacies involved when you try to deal with such kind of tools that we're talking about over here, whatever Ratna just showed you as a quick demo. I mean, there are a lot of processes involved in order to set such kind of automation. As and when you get to learn more, these are the things that you will experience. You will come across things like branching strategy. You will come across things like integrating different code review tools like SonarQube within your Bitbucket. And as soon as you try to commit and push your changes, right, the code review will be performed and you'll get an automated result, how many security vulnerabilities are there in your code, and those will be reported to you. So yeah, please feel free to ask any questions, and me and Ratna will be always be there to help you out.
Yeah, Sarfaraz.
Yeah, hello, hello, Ratna. So I have a question actually. You said like we have to create digital certificate, and that certificate we have to upload in Bitbucket. Then this pipeline and the Bitbucket will make a connection. Okay, so pipeline will decrypt the certificate and it will match with the Bitbucket certificate. So you said like we have to upload it. Can you show it where exactly we need to go and upload it?
So yeah, let me correct you here. So the digital certificate we should upload into the Salesforce connected app. So we need to create a connected app in the Salesforce. So in that Salesforce connected app, when you select JWT flow, you will get an option to upload the digital certificate. So once you upload and create that connected app, then it will give you a client ID and client secret. So that will be used as variable repositories in Bitbucket. Whereas this digital certificate is something that we will create with the help of server.key. Right. So we will encrypt this server.key so that we will get an encrypted version of server.key. So that server.key, which is encrypted, is what we upload into Bitbucket, not the digital certificate itself. Right. So with whatever key and IV values we encrypted it, so the same will be used in your SSL command that I shown you in the Bitbucket pipelines to decrypt it. I mean, to the original form. So then we use this sf-org login JWT command, which is a CLI command, to make a connection to the Salesforce org. So to answer your question shortly, we'll upload it into the connected app of Salesforce, not into Bitbucket.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for clearing me out. And I have another question, Ratna. Can we do same pipeline connection with other version controlling tool like GitHub or GitLab?
Yeah, GitHub has something called GitHub Actions, and GitLab. I'm not 100% sure, but it also should have similar feature in it. So we will let you know about that. But GitHub is something that has this feature already.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for answering me. Thank you, Ratna.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking the question, Sarfaraz. Just for the last point that you mentioned, right, Sarfaraz. So We do have concepts of webhooks when you deal with tools like GitLab or GitHub, even with the tools like Jenkins, right? So in webhook, we usually write different kinds of scripts. One of those scripts that I have used in my past experiences is Groovy script, where you write certain commands and then you try to connect that with a particular branch and then do the automation. So probably that is something you may want to explore.
Yeah, sure, Prasenjeet. I will explore it maybe tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you for answering it.
Yep. I would like
Can we expect more questions?
any more questions? Please feel free to ask any questions because we basically believe no questions are silly. If you're learning something, if you feel like the question might be lame, it's not like that. So please feel free to ask anything that you have in mind.
Hi, Venkatesh. Yeah,
Yeah.
please ask your question.
Hi, Ratna and Prasenjeet. So I have a question on, how should we go about choosing the correct CI/CD tool for our organization? Because let's say for a current client, I was using Copado, which seemed, it takes forever to deploy things, and something like Bitbucket takes much lesser time. So how should we go about deciding on which to consider and how to convince our clients?
Okay. So, Venkatesh, I'll answer this. I would like to answer this question because, I am also facing similar issue with one of my clients. So, if you're an impression that, Bitbucket deployments will take lesser time than Copado deployments, or for that matter, any other deployment tools deployment, then maybe that is wrong. So that's a misconception, I would say. So your deployment time will totally depend upon the metadata that you have in your target org. So when it comes to my client's situation, so we already consumed over 93% of our code base storage. So any single clause that you deploy into Salesforce org, that will make all the other classes recompile. So that actually will cause a lot of deployment time. So maybe I don't think that is a problem of Copado or any other tool. But yeah, if you want me to do a quick comparison between this Copado and Bitbucket, so pricing wise, Bitbucket you can get it with for lesser price than this, but these two are kind of very different tools, altogether. So Bitbucket is just a version control system, whereas Copado or GearSet, these tools are deployment tools where they have the version control system capabilities as well. So those will provide you a single screen where with few clicks you can create your branches, and you can do the commits, and you can create the pull requests, and you can resolve your merge conflicts, and you can finally make your code base ready for the release as well. But yeah, pricing wise, there is a lot of difference. If your team wants to explore Bitbucket with VS Code with very minimal cost, then yeah, I don't recommend anything, but I mean that's totally a decision that you and your team should come up with. Balesh, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, mostly, see, it's like, some people like how working with Ubuntu or Linux, and some people like Mac, some people like Microsoft. It's not like one is better than the other, but they are different tools with different pricing, and I would say 70-80% of the features are similar, but then again, they have one or two unique features, and that's why they are in the market. So in this forum, we will not be in a position to actually compare and give recommendations. And that's not right also, because ideally you have to evaluate each of those tools. But what we can say is definitely Bitbucket is way more cheaper. The reason being, it's one of the most basic light version of version control. compared to a Copado, Flossom, Gearset, and all, which are much more advanced tools and available in ABSYZ.
Yeah, thanks for clearing that out. And I do accept that, as Prasenjeet also told, that you can integrate multiple tools to check your code quality as well. Like you have static code analysis that is already inbuilt into Copado, and maybe you'll have to do that separately and integrate it into Bitbucket, things like that. Yeah, I do agree.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct. So in terms of Bitbucket, the complexity in terms of understanding the underlying processes, the configuration work, it's extensively involved. But when you use such tools, they're already pre-built with such kind of mechanisms for which you do not have to learn a lot. With certain points and clicks, you will be able to achieve the desired solution. And that's the reason they come with a huge cost as compared to Bitbucket.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Thank you, Venkatesh.
In fact, Copado is mostly, user-friendly, click and use. So you don't have to write those command line prompts.
Correct.
Okay. Any more questions? Any more scenarios? We have about 4 more minutes. So,
Yeah, I have a question. Vedvas here.
Yes.
Ratna, you wrote a YAML file, right? So is there any reference where you took, or it's randomly you wrote that one?
Yeah. So actually, there are too many documentations available online. Bitbucket itself is providing how you can set up this Bitbucket YAML file, the pipeline file that we used. So over there, it was very well documented about what are the different steps that you can put, what are the different stages that you can define in a pipeline and all. So yeah, we can refer to the documentation and write it. As well as there are many private blogs, posted by different individuals and companies, where you can refer to them as well if you want a ready-made kind of Bitbucket pipeline.
Yeah. Why I have a question there? Like when you're deploying the pipeline, you choose custom, but instead of custom, if you have used the automation, so what would have happened? It would have automatically done the process, or it would have done a different way.
Exactly. So the first validation, if you see, I did not click on anything. Right. So it automatically done. So the steps that I put in that step, right, the set of instructions that I put in that step, that was supposed to be run automatically, right? So whereas this custom step, that won't happen automatically. So I let my release manager to click on that button and run that pipeline for us. So I mean, you can configure it in a way, however you want it. If you want to do the deployment also automatically, you can, just remove that custom step from your pipeline, so that the deployment will also be done automatically.
Okay. So if you have chosen automatic, it would have done automatically instead of the custom code where you have to manually trigger the pipeline.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
In addition to it, Vedvyas, in case if you're curious about how to automate and write the scripts for the pipelines, Bitbucket also gives us a privilege to write the pipelines using JavaScript. Many people are not familiar with Bash language, right? Which usually we run on Linux or Unix kind of operating systems, but it also has a privilege that you can write JavaScript commands in order to execute those actions.
Oh, yeah, that's good to hear. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we just have 1 minute left. So any more questions?
if no other questions, then what I'll suggest is once we are uploading this recorded webinar, in the comments, we can also add some of these documentation or links to documentation. And that will also help, future learners to directly go and instead of them trying to find out each of these documentation.
Sure, Balesh.
Yeah.
Good. So Once again, let me take this opportunity to thank everyone, especially now I would also like to thank Ratna and Prasenjeet for taking this awesome session. And though they have gone into the details, I hope the audience is also equally adjusted to such detailed session. I hope at least for some of you, you were able to follow, and those who are not able to follow also, don't worry. This is a recorded session. You can always come back, review it, and then use these procedures or processes in your deployments. So with that, let me thank everyone once again, and we can probably close this webinar. Sure. Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend ahead.
Good evening. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.